Every garden needs a good pruner, and although you might not think that you're up for the job, it only takes a little bit of information for you to be that good pruner for your garden. Two things: one, have the right tools, and two, use the right technique. Let's talk about tools. You don't need a lot of tools to be a good pruner in your garden. Three basic tools will get you through all the tasks that you need to do when it comes to pruning. First and foremost, you need a good pair of hand pruners, and you see I'm pulling it out of a holster. Hand pruners without a holster are a lost pair of pruners in the garden. If you have a holster and somewhere to slide it in, you'll never lose them. You put them right back in there. Now, a good pair of hand pruners. Doesn't matter the brand, what matters is the blade. A good sharp blade that is cradled by a scissor type pruning, and you can see how that cuts right through. It's not an anvil type, it's a scissor type. And these kinds of pruners here make good clean cuts, and that's what you need. Now, how big a branch can you use a pair of pruners like this on? Well, first of all, the branch has to fit in the cradle, and second, you need to be able to close the pruners with one hand. If you have to use two hands on your pruner, then you've got to go to a bigger pruner. So the second tool is called the lopping shear. And a lopping shear is exactly the same kind of a pruner, but it's bigger, and it's on the end of two long handles. Now this gives you leverage. It's bigger so you can cut bigger branches, but it also allows you to cut over your head and into the shrub or the tree without having to climb up into it. And this gives you a lot of flexibility. You can do a lot of good pruning there. You might say, well, what's the third tool? Can't you do it all with just the lopping shear and the hand pruners? No, the third tool is for branches that are even bigger, and that would mean that you need to use a pruning saw. Now, a pruning saw, you can buy a good pruning saw. They're different than most carpentry saws. This pruning saw, actually you press a button and the blade comes open. It's small, it's lightweight, and this pruning saw cuts on the pull stroke. And that's a good thing to do because when you're pruning, you need to maintain a good center of gravity. If you have to lift up over your head or reach in, you're always cutting when you pull. These three tools are really the only tools you need. If you think you need a bigger tool or a better tool like a chainsaw or a pole pruner, chances are it's time to hire a professional. Small deciduous trees and shrubs like this can easily overgrow an area before you even realize it. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, how can I prune this back in order to contain it? Take, for instance, this shrub. It's right there overgrowing into a patio area. It's fall, so we shouldn't prune too much, but we can do touch-up pruning provided that we use the right technique. Now, when it comes to technique, there are two basic pruning cuts that we should use. And the most important pruning cut is called thinning out, but also known as drop crotching. Now, I know that sounds kind of funny, but a crotch is where one branch meets another. And so drop crotching is where you prune a branch back to where it meets another. Take, for instance, this branch right here. It's growing out, and if you look, you can see it grows all the way back here where it meets another branch. Now in this case, I've got a live branch here and one dead branch with a damaged section. That always needs to be removed. So I'm going to take my pruners and cut back to where one branch meets another. That's a crotch right there. Prune it right like that. And if you look, you can see it doesn't even look like it's been pruned, and yet we've been able to reduce some size. Now, sometimes we have a branch that grows out. We don't want to drop crotch it because it would go back too far. So the second technique for pruning is something called heading back, and that's where we prune back to an outward facing bud. Well, in this case, that's where the leaves are. So if I look at this stem here and I'm going to cut back using the heading back cut, I cut right here above that leaf. Like that. I haven't gone back to where one branch meets another, but I've been able to reduce the size of the branch. It's that simple. Use the two techniques, the right tools, and you can prune up a shrub like this in no time.